Hello, welcome. Today we will do a summary of Chapter 3, Emerging Business Ethics Issues. If you recall from reading the book in the chapter and some of the other previous lectures, you are aware that ethical issues exist all over our organizations every single day. If you open a newspaper again, you're going to see ethical dilemmas related to businesses around the globe. So ethical issues involve a group, a problem, or an opportunity which may require some introspection and eventually investigation before a good decision can be made. So again, that introspection and that investigation is important to become aware of all the stakeholders or relevant groups' issues and their views about it before you can make a good decision that is ethical, that is legal, that is moral, and that obviously is sustainable for you, for your organization, for the relevant stakeholders. As part of the emerging business ethical issues, we need to be concerned about what are the foundational values. So we need to identify those that are extremely important regardless of where we do business. One of those values is integrity, which is an element of virtue in unimpaired condition. So integrity relates to product quality, to open communication, to being transparent, into maintaining a win-win relationship with all relevant parties. Another one of these foundational values is honesty, being truthful and having trustworthiness as an individual, as a manager, or even as a corporation, being trustworthy in terms of our products, in terms of our brand, and in terms of our decision making locally and globally. So to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge without hiding anything is the characteristic of honesty. When you're a manager, when you're a business person, if you're considered to be lacking in honesty or lacking in integrity, chances are you will have a high level of employee turnover, and employees will not always follow your decisions because they don't trust you, and you're not going to be seen as a person with high character or strong character. So showing integrity and being honest is essential foundational elements for successful management, successful leadership, and being a good professional in any industry and any organization. So being honest is a critical component all in itself. When you lose your respect and people see you as being dishonest, you cannot be seen as an ethical individual or ethical manager. Avoid lying to others. What is lying? It's untruthful statements that result in damage or in harm. Telling white lies, which do not cause damage necessarily, but instead function as excuses or as a means of benefiting others. And these lying statements obviously at times are meant to engage or entertain without malice, but nonetheless it can damage your reputation as a person of integrity or honesty. So avoid lying in order to be seen as a person who will make good decisions in all cases. Be fair to all parties involved. That's another foundational value. So being just, being equitable, being impartial are traits that is associated with people of integrity and strong characters, individuals who are always honest. There are three fundamental elements that motivate people to be fair, to be just, to be equitable, and to be impartial. First, equality. Second, reciprocity. And then third, optimization. Equality is the distribution of benefits in resources to all relevant parties on a fair or equitable basis. Reciprocity is an interchange of giving and receiving in social relationships. If you're kind to your employees, they will be kind to you. If you're honest with your employees will be honest to you. And the opposite works as well. So be very careful about what you say, how you say it, and whether you can deliver on promises you make to your employees or not. If you cannot deliver, do not promise. And then optimization is the trade-off between equity and efficiency. We have to be very cautious about efficiency in all cases. If it hurts other individuals and basically makes us to be dishonest or unfair, that type of efficiency may not be good for your long-term character as an individual or your brand as a company or as an organization. So these values are foundational, and violating them hurts your brand, your character. Avoid bribery, whether it's in a local environment or in international environment. So bribery is offering something in order to gain an illicit advantage from someone in authority. There's active bribery, where a person who promises or gives the bribe commits the offense. And then there is passive bribery, where offense is committed by an individual who receives the bribe. Avoid both forms of bribery. Also, avoid illegal forms of discrimination toward other individuals. If it's unfair discrimination, do not get involved with it, because somebody always gets hurt. So discrimination on the basis of a person's race, color, religion, gender, marital status, sexual orientation, public assistance status, disability, age, national origin, or even veteran status is illegal, at least in the United States, and perhaps in most other countries as well. And even if it's not illegal, again, we're discriminating against somebody simply because of a label, not because of his or her qualification or experience. So when somebody's labeled as a person of, let's say, veteran status or of a specific sexual orientation, these labels do not describe how well they perform their jobs. So therefore, we should not discriminate against them. The only form of discrimination that should be there is when somebody is qualified for a position based on experience. He or she can do it better than the second person. Therefore, he or she can be hired, and the second person should be discriminated against simply because he or she does not have the same level of qualification as the first person. So those are legal forms of discrimination where the criteria or qualification criteria are clearly stated. So discrimination on the basis of political opinions or affiliation with a union is defined as harassment. It may not be illegal, but it can fall in the category of harassment, which is not good either. Avoid any and all forms of harassment, whether it is in terms of bullying harassment, a hostile work environment, or even sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is any repeated unwanted behavior of a sexual nature perpetrated upon one person by another person or groups of individuals in a department or in the company. The sexual harassments can be verbal, visual, written, or physical. It can occur between people of different genders or those of the same gender. And the law in the United States is concerned with the impact of the behavior and not necessarily its intent. So if you say, I was joking, but the other person is hurt because of the way he or she received it, that will land you in jail, make you guilty, simply because the law is concerned about the impact your behavior has on another individual, not necessarily what your intention was. So even if you meant to joke, but it hurts another person, that by itself is a violation of the law, and you will be found guilty. So be very cautious, because joking is not appropriate in the workplace, so therefore you should always avoid jokes. In terms of hostile work environment, there are several criteria that must be met. The conduct should be unwelcome. It should be severe, pervasive, and regarded by the claimant as hostile or offensive to a point where his or her conditions of employment are impacted. His or her work is impacted. And third, such that a reasonable person would find it hostile or offensive in any department, in any organization, in any country. Avoid fraud. Fraud is any purposeful communication that deceives, manipulates, or conceals facts in order to harm another person or other groups of individuals. It can be a crime, so convictions may result in fines, imprisonment, or both in the United States. Accounting fraud usually involves a corporation's financial reports. The fraud triangle usually relates to putting pressure in seeing an opportunity and rationalizing to take advantage of those opportunities. Marketing fraud involves dishonestly creating, distributing, promoting, and pricing products to give you an advantage over others through illegal or unethical means. As summary, let us talk about this topic in the form of a few questions. Are there common values or morals? Of course. Anywhere you go around the globe, you're going to see people who are of high integrity, who show honesty, and those who show fairness. So these are common values across the globe among all individuals throughout humanity. So try to be individuals who are considered to be people of integrity, honesty, and fairness in all of your decisions at the personal level and at the professional level. What is bribery mean? What does bribery mean? Bribery is offering something in order to gain an illicit advantage from someone who is in the position of authority to grant you permission before doing the same for others who are ahead of you or more deserving of the decision compared to you. So you're trying to seek an advantage, therefore you bribe an individual or give them money or something that they really need. You grant them that in order to have this illicit advantage. We talked about active bribery and we talked about passive bribery. Both forms should be avoided. And also the textbook talks about small facilitation payments, which are at times legal according to the US laws. However, in most cases, it would be illegal when it's in large sums of money to get an advantage from government officials in foreign countries. So American managers and employees have to be concerned about the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, because the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act also have the extraterritoriality laws, which prohibits bribing foreign officials to get an advantage over others. And obviously your textbook does mention how these small facilitation payments are totally illegal according to the United Kingdom's laws. What are the differences between sexual harassment in a hostile work environment? Well, sexual harassment is any repeated unwanted behavior of sexual nature that is perpetrated upon one individual by another person. It may be verbal, visual, written, or physical, and it can occur between people of different genders or those of the same gender. The law is primarily concerned with the impact of the behavior and not necessarily the intention of the individual. So when you hurt somebody, that person is hurt. Whether you intended to hurt the person or not, the outcome nonetheless is the same. Hostile work environment is basically a conduct that is unwelcome, severe, pervasive, and regarded by the victim as so hostile or offensive as to alter his or her conditions of employment. Conduct was such that a reasonable person would find it hostile or offensive. To assert a hostile work environment, an employee or a worker need not prove it seriously impacted his or her psychological well-being or that it caused an injury. The decisive issue here is whether the conduct interfered with the worker's overall performance in doing his or her job in the department. Is insider trading legal? Well, not really. So you need to become aware of what is meant by insider trading. In insider trading, keep in mind that in insiders, any officer, director, or owner of 10% or more of a class of a company's securities. So illegal insider trading means the buying or selling of stocks by insiders who possess information that is not available to the public in general. Legal insider trading means legally buying and selling stock in an insider's own company, but not all the time. Insiders are required to report their insider transactions within 2 business days of the date the transaction occurred, so the public can become aware, and hopefully you have good reasons for why you're buying or selling your stocks. Which types of fraud are legal and should they be? Well, fraud is any purposeful communication that deceives, manipulates, or conceals facts in order to harm others. There's accounting fraud, marketing fraud, and puffery. Accounting fraud usually involves a corporation's financial reports. Marketing fraud is dishonestly creating, distributing, promoting, and pricing products. Puffery is basically exaggerated advertising, blustering, and boasting upon which no reasonable buyer would rely upon and is not actionable under any of the acts in the United States. So be very careful of not committing any frauds. Sometimes you can be boasting about your product, which may not necessarily be fraud, but still it's unethical to be passing on information that is not necessarily the truth about your product. Is marketing fraudulent? Well, marketing can be fraudulent when you're deceiving people. But not all marketing is fraudulent because you're passing on information about your product. However, when there's implied falsity, that is fraudulent. Implied falsity is when you're misleading, confusing, or deceiving people. Your message is literally true, but it implies a false message. Literally false means bold assertions when the advertisement makes a claim that cannot be substantiated. So you need to avoid that. And in terms of labeling issues, be very careful not to put false information. So put correct information that is true and factual. When it comes to consumer fraud, be aware of shoplifting, collusion, duplicity, and being guile. Duplicity, staging an accident and seeking damages. Guile basically means understanding right and wrong, but using tricks to obtain an unfair advantage. The advantage is unfair because the person has the intent to go against the right behavior or the right result. So good luck being ethical in all cases. Remember, ethical behavior is a skill. You need to please evaluate and improve your ethical muscles every single day. Good luck.